Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video here on Monday, January 31st, about 20 minutes after market close, 4:22 p.m. Eastern time, here in Jacksonville. And today we got a big bounce, and we're going to look at, is it an oversold bounce? Is it something more? We're going to look at the trades we made today in Protection as well as standout stocks like we always do in all of my videos. So let's get right into it, folks. What just happened? Huge bounce for equities, like I said, and growth outperforming value big time, something we haven't seen much this year. So we got the S&P 500 growth ETF up around 3%, the value ETF up a little under 1 or around 1, just to give you a little bit of an idea there. Also, you can just kind of tell by the G6 here, up 4.22%. ARKK up nearly 10% today. SPY or SPX, the S&P up 2%. Q's up 3.2, Dow up a little over 1, mid caps up 2.2%, Russell 2000 right there with the Q's being up 3% or a little over 3% today. So big time bounce for sure. I mean, you don't see a ton of 3% up days on the Q's, the Russell. So a nice bounce. A lot of stocks closing out at the highs, the indices going out at the highs. So we're going to get to all that here in just a moment once we get to the charts. But first, let's talk about market state quickly. We have no changes here. This is correction as of 118. That remains. And we are now in day 6, no follow through day today as volume tracked lower on the indices. Also, no changes to the trend gauge. We do have the Dow and the S&P poking their head above the 200-day, but it is the first close. We're looking for some more closes, consecutive closes above that 200-day moving average. And ultimately, if this rally is going to have some footing, we want to see closes above the 21 and so forth. So, but for the time being, no changes to the short or medium or market leaders. Those remain bearish, and no changes to long term. That remains neutral. So before we go to the charts very quickly, this is me here in the middle. This is my email. If you have any questions, any comments, anything about what I talk about here, whether it's a stock, an index, the dollar, interest rates, whatever it is, please send me an email. I'll be happy to answer your questions, hunter@revereasset.com, or you can email anybody here, Dan, Tim, Merrill, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com. So let's get right into it, folks. SPY, as you can see, getting back above that 200-day with some conviction, also closing above the 8-day exponential moving average. Very important. As you can see, it was resistance in this whole time frame here as we were kind of falling on the indices and in the market. So now that trend has been changed a little bit, right? We got a borderline close above the 8 on Friday with that really strong close, and then today we see that 8-day start to hook up. Now we're at this incredibly important 450 level on the S&Ps here. As you can see, previous support as well as previous resistance here. The declining 21 also finding its way right there at that 450. So a really pivotal spot here for the S&P 500. And what we're looking for from a bull standpoint is the ability to get through this 21-day and close above it, or similarly to close above 450. On the bear side of things, we want to see the S&P stay above the 200, obviously, and then we don't want to see these recent lows be taken out. But for the time being, S&P back above the 200 and also getting back above that 8-day exponential moving average, possibly reversing the short-term trend at least. So QQQ, same story as far as the 8-day, getting back above it for the first time here, but about a 0.5% or so, 1% from challenging the 200-day and the 21-day, which is right here around 365. So we talked about this with QQQ as well. This 350 level is very, very important. We see today we opened up above and held it and closed very strong. That's a positive sign, at least for the near term. Next thing we're watching here on the Qs, what happens when we get up into this 365-ish area, into that 200, into that 21 EMA. Go to the Dow here, closing basically right under the 21 EMA, but right above the 200 in this little sandwich here, as you can see. But the positive here, similar to the S&P, kind of eking out 2 consecutive closes above the 8-day. Friday was very, very close, but that's a positive sign. You see that 8-day start to hook back up. Now what happens at this 350 level, which has been very important for the Dow, corresponds to 35,000 roughly for the Dow Jones Industrial Average if you're looking at the actual index itself. But we want to see what happens at this declining 21, and then you've got the declining 50 also not very far overhead. IWM reclaiming this ever important 200 level here. It's 2000 if you're looking at the actual Russell 2000 index, which it did close above today. I think it closed around 2030. But IWM, same story. First close above the 8 since January 4th. So basically the first close above the 8 for the whole year, more or less, for small caps here. And then mid caps is going to be a pretty similar story. Doesn't look as good as QQQ, DIA, SPY. Obviously, the large caps seem to be holding up a little better, have a little bit more strength, but same story, back above the 8. Next step on IWM or on MDY here is this declining 21 EMA. So let's get into the charts, but quickly, before we go to actual stocks here, let's take a quick look at the dollar. So we had this move above this November high right here, this 26, and it looked like the dollar was breaking out off to the races. But today we get a move down on UUP, back below that November high. And really all I want to highlight here is the importance of these highs. Are we ultimately going to be able to bounce off of this area here and get back above 26, get back above these November highs, or was this an oopsie and it ultimately goes lower? I just wanted to point it out because this is a pretty sharp move up here, just to be followed by a quick move down on the dollar. So let's get into some stocks, folks. And we're going to start with Apple. And we did buy this today in Grotection with a really strong reaction following earnings and then follow through today. This acted very well pretty much all day long. We started a position early, added to it. Apple, one of the first leaders out of this recent market correction. Big tech in general acting pretty well today. Microsoft poking its head above the 21 EMA. Google also trying to get back above the 21, but not necessarily able to, kind of like the Dow sandwich between the 21 and the 200. But bright side is above the 8. You see there that pink line, getting 2 closes above it as well as a close above the 200 day. And Tesla was up about 10% today as well after a brutal sell-off last week. So Tesla, same story, back above the 8 here, big time rally. And we're going to keep rolling through these pretty quickly here, folks. So PanW, up 4.5% today, up above the 21, held up very well, especially compared to a lot of its peers in the cybersecurity space. And I wanted to bring it to you today because of, one, the relative strength, but two, the fact that there's not a ton of what you would call growth stocks out there that are above the 21 EMA. PanW, one that's hung in there pretty well. So I wanted to bring that one to you guys. Another growth name that actually is one of the better looking growth stock charts out there, Bros. And we actually initiated a small position on this one today. It was one of the first growth stocks to show some relative strength. Made a nice little wedge here, as you can see, and then popped out of that. So we did initiate a small position here on Bros, getting back above this important 50 level as well as these moving averages today. AMD, which I believe is reporting earnings after the bell. I have not seen what their stock price is doing, but AMD and NVDA both have a strong day, up 8.5% today, back above that 8-day exponential moving average. And then NVIDIA also having a big day, up about 7%, back above those moving averages. You'll see this pattern is pretty synonymous here. A lot of names that did get back above the 8. Now we're looking at this declining 21 as kind of the next line in the sand or potential area of interest. So very quickly here, we're going to run through some more names that showed some strength today. Juniper, very similar pattern to Apple in the sense that it just quickly reclaimed these moving averages off of earnings and is off to the races again. Just 2 really strong candles closing near the top of the range. And then another name in the networking area, ANET, trying to turn things around too, showing some relative strength today, back above the 8-day. So Juniper certainly the best, but the networking industry group, which had been very strong, showing a little bit of some signs of life here. Now I want to show you some of these high beta, high flyer names that had these big rallies today as well. So you see Net here, Cloudflare up almost 15% after a just precipitous fall off. Right back above the 8-day exponential, haven't done that in a while. And now we're going to see what happens at this 100 level at this declining 21. Like I said, recurring theme, a lot of names above the 8-day now potentially go into challenge and declining 21. Just to quickly run through some of these high beta names that had these big days today. Roblox, another name up big today, up 13%. Affirm, up 8% today above the 8-day. Upstart, another former fintech darling here, up 15%. So we saw a lot of these moves today, a lot of these exhausted, beaten down names up 10, 15, 20% today. So I just wanted to bring you a few examples of what those look like. And like I said, first step, got to get through that 21, but you never know, that can be blown through to the upside in a very quick fashion. So just the main thing that you want to take away from today is the fact that these were closing above those 8-day exponential moving averages for the first time in a long time. A lot of those names have really been in downtrends and struggled to have any type of positive momentum for a while now. So let's go through a few more here. As far as what we did, some of the best sectors. We did sell our S&P short today, earlier this morning, and we added SSO, which is our S&P 500 exposure. So the reason for that, we've got the S&P, like we talked about at the beginning of the video, back above the 200 convincingly. And that is our line in the sand, this 200-day moving average. So back above it by about, I'd say, roughly 2% or so. 1.6 is what we're showing here on SPY. But like I said, out of the S&P 500 short and actually long SSO today, as well as Bros, as well as Apple. So let's run through some of the best sectors very quickly as well. XLY, this is consumer discretionary, performing very well today, up 4%. XBI also having one of the best days of all the sectors today, up 5.5%. And you'll notice these are not great charts, but these are the sectors that were making the strongest moves, had the strongest price performance today. We saw the sectors that have been leading, like oil and gas, struggle today and be laggards. So a lot of the stuff that has been beaten up really badly is what was leading today. However, ZIM shipping, this was really strong today, continues to be strong, but this has not suffered the weakness that we've seen growth stocks deal with. And this has been a really strong sector. As you can see, transportation ship, number 7 out of 197 industry groups. So ZIM continues to hang in there. And I mentioned the oil and gas names, and I'll quickly show you some of that weakness there. So XOP, not necessarily weak. This is oil and gas exploration ETF, but a laggard, right? Lagged the S&P by a good bit, obviously lagged the Qs. We also saw defense stocks have a tough day today. Lockheed Martin down a little bit. Let's see here, Northrop Grumman, excuse me, down 3%. Let's see here, LHX down 4%. This was earnings related, but these were stocks that had been showing some decent relative strength recently. Some of those starting to fall apart a little bit. So like I said, there's a lot of positives out there today, not as much negative. Really defense stocks and oil's lagging was really where it was, the weakness was at. For the most part, pretty broad strength today across the board. So that is going to wrap up the video, everybody. That's all I have for you. What we're looking for on the S&P, on the Qs, we want to see closes above those moving averages, those key levels, right? On the S&P, we want to stay above 450. We want to be above the 21. On the Qs, we want to be able to see some closes through the 200-day, through the 21. So that's what we're looking for. That's what we're watching for. And that is going to wrap it. So I will see you all on Thursday. Hope you all have a great week.